Hey, what's up, forum? It's Gorilla Hands, and today you're going to get a chance to see some early Gears of War 3 beta gameplay. The gameplay is going to consist of snippets from two different matches in which I'm playing King of the Hill. The first match that I'm playing on is on a map called Old Town. So I thought I'd give my initial impressions of the game thus far, but I can't go into too much detail or depth, and I can't be too critical about the beta, because one, obviously it's a beta, and there's going to be some tweaks and changes between now and when the game is finally released. And two, I don't have a whole lot of experience with the Gears of War series. Last time I played Gears was Gears of War 1, and I only put about a month's worth of time into the multiplayer. Meaning it's not really fair, and I don't really have a whole lot of credibility to talk about, say, something like weapon balance, just because I don't know how weapons really operate yet. So for me to call a weapon overpowered might really not be true, just because I might not know the proper tactic or strategy to avoid it correctly just yet. And since we're already on the subject, for the guys that are watching this that do have a lot of experience with the series and are good at Gears of War, obviously I'm not. I'm new, and I don't really know all the ins and outs of the game just yet. And also, this is a big adjustment from, say, first-person shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield. So if you're watching this and you have tips, tricks, and suggestions, or strategies and techniques that I should use to improve my gameplay, please let me know, because I'm learning as I go, and there's a lot about this game that I do not know about. But even though I don't have a whole lot of experience with the series, and I don't really know what I'm doing just yet, I will say that the beta has been a blast to play up until this point in time. And that might be because it's just so different from games that I'm normally used to playing, so it's a nice change of pace. But it's feels like it's faster than Gears of War 1, and it's a beautiful looking game, obviously because it's using the Unreal Engine 3. Also, in terms of latency, I haven't had any significant issues, which I'm sure a lot of Gears players are glad to hear, especially because host advantage has been a big problem with the series. But now that they have dedicated servers, I haven't noticed any significant discrepancy in terms of lag between me and other players. The only problem I've noticed so far was that right there. I'll jump forward 4 or 5 feet in the blink of an eye, and it happens fairly periodically, maybe 2 or 3 times in a game, and I don't know if that is an issue on my end, and maybe I have to open some ports on my router, or if it's an issue with their servers. I imagine they probably don't have all their servers up and running right now, because there's only about 1,000 people playing the game. So we're really going to get a chance to see how this game performs come Monday. That's because everybody who bought Bulletstorm is going to have a chance to jump on the beta and start playing. And we're going to see how the servers perform under a much higher stress load. So of the 3 game modes that are available to you when you get the beta, I've only played 2 thus far. I've played King of the Hill and I've played TDM. I've yet to play Capture the Leader. But of the 2 I have played, I prefer King of the Hill. And the reasons for that are, 1, I've always liked objective-based game modes over strictly TDM. And 2, I feel like King of the Hill is slightly faster paced than TDM. And I think that's because there's the one objective that everyone's fighting for and everyone's running towards. And also, you don't have a limited number of respawns. I'm not sure if Gears of War 3 uses the same model of TDM as Gears 2. If so, let me know if you guys have had similar experiences to what I'm about to describe, and how you went about handling it. Because in Gears 3, in order to win a game of TDM, you don't do so by hitting a score limit faster than the enemy team. In order to win, both teams have a certain number of respawns, and once an enemy team's respawns has been deleted to 0, they lose. And I've noticed using that model that the beginning of a TDM match will be fairly fast-paced, but in some games, once an enemy team's respawns have been depleted to 0, they'll sit in their spawn and try to fortify that position and camp it out. And it's almost like the last stand at the Alamo. They'll do whatever they can to survive at the very end of the game. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I have seen it happen on numerous occasions, especially on the map Trenches, and you'll see some gameplay footage of that map later in this video. And it's not a huge issue to me, it's just strange that the game will start out very up-tempo and then switch gears to a much slower paced game towards the end of the match. And it's just one of the reasons why I prefer King of the Hill, because the pacing of that game mode stays consistent throughout the entire course of that match. In terms of the weapons in this game, I haven't had a chance to try all of the pickup weapons yet, but the loadout guns, the weapons you get when you spawn, I found I've had the most success with the traditional shotgun, the shotgun that's existed throughout the entire Gears series, and the Retro Lancer. Now the Retro Lancer is not a very effective long-range weapon, just because it has a lot of recoil and a lot of bullet spread at distance. And even if you burst fire that gun, I found that most people can get behind cover before you can inflict enough damage to down them. But at close and medium distances, it's devastating. It'll put people down fairly quickly.
And it also has a pretty cool melee attack. If you tap B, you'll do a quick gun butt that does a little bit of damage, but if you hold B, you'll deploy a bayonet and start to do a rowdy run. And if you run into somebody doing that rowdy run, you'll impale them with the bayonet, you'll lift them up off the ground, and then throw them back down, killing them in one hit. It's a fairly effective one-hit kill, and you'll see me do it later on in this video, but there are some things that you need to be aware of when using it. For one, if you're not perfectly aligned with the enemy as you're charging him and you miss, then you're left defenseless for a couple seconds. And also, if the enemy sees you coming while you're charging, he can blow you away with the shotgun in one hit, so you just have to know when to use it. Now, like I said before, I've had more success with the traditional shotgun, but I do like the sawed-off shotgun. It's a one-hit kill at a fairly close distance, and its reticle is the size of the screen horizontally, so you don't have to be super accurate whenever you're using it. But the trade-off is you only get one shot, and it takes a long time to reload that thing. But I've seen people do work with the sawed-off shotgun. I just prefer the traditional shotgun. Now, of the assault rifles that I haven't mentioned yet, the Hammerburst and the traditional Lancer, I like using the Hammerburst on maps with long lines of sights, just because it's accurate at a distance and it fires at a rate that you can pull the trigger. So you can fire that thing pretty quickly, and you can aim down sights so you can fine-tune your accuracy. So it's a really beneficial weapon to have to down people at distances. Now, the traditional Lancer, I haven't had a whole lot of success with that gun. It has a tighter bullet spread than the Retro Lancer, but it just doesn't seem to have the stopping power that the Retro Lancer does, and it's just not very effective at long distances like the Hammerburst. It still has the chainsaw bayonet, so you can cut people in half in one hit, but I just prefer the other two assault rifles over the traditional Lancer. I also enjoyed all of the multiplayer maps that came with the beta. There's 4 in total, and in this video you're going to see 2 of them. The first one was Old Town, and what I'm playing on now is Trenches. And the other 2 that you're not going to see is Thrashball, which is an abandoned stadium that looks similar to a football stadium. And it has a little bit of interactivity on that map. There's a giant scoreboard that sits over the field, and you can shoot it and it'll come collapsing down, and it'll crush anybody that's below it, and you can also use it as a form of cover. And the final map that is actually my personal favorite is Checkout, which is an abandoned, run-down department store. And the reason I like Checkout the most is just because it has a good mix of close quarters combat and long lines of sights, so you can get a lot of varying gameplay whenever you're on that map. My least favorite map right now is Trenches, just because, as I mentioned before, at the end of TDM games I've noticed a lot of people just sit back in the spawn and camp. And also, every so often, a giant sandstorm will come in and reduce your visibility to about 2 or 3 feet in front of you. And normally when it rolls in, there's not a whole lot of movement or action. Most people just try to wait it out until it disappears. It is a good way to sneak up behind people, but it doesn't happen too often. But those are my initial opinions of the beta up until now. I'm happy with it so far, but let me know what you guys think once it's released on Monday and that more people have access to it. And as always, take it easy.